So because of the technical difficulties, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:10. And the first order of business is to approve the minutes of May 6th. So do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from May 6, 2024.
Okay, second? You seconding them?
Do I have to say?
Oh, Mike can't because he wasn't here. Oh, I will, okay.
Yeah.
Second, okay. Is there any discussion? Then moving along. We'll vote on the minutes. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I'll abstain.
Okay. So then, Phil,
Yes,
you want to start?
I will. We have a number of great things to share at this meeting. These are really updates and that typically we provide during the school year, especially because some of the things were newer programs that were put into the curriculum this year. One's around a grant with world language to provide updates that started over a year ago. But we're going to start with the ECE grant and the ECE opportunities. We have Shannon Weigel here and Jasmine Zubek. I'm not sure if there's anyone else who's going to speak on this, but I thought we do have a PowerPoint that I could share with my screen, Jasmine. I'll just, because you had sent it to me. I think maybe, Shannon, or is it, maybe it's incorporated in your presentation about the grant itself? Or should I have Shannon give some information about that?
Yeah, I mean, if Shannon wants to start, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, I mean, hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. I think, yeah, it is pretty covered in Jasmine's presentation, but basically this was a grant through the State Department of Education. They used ARP ESSER funds to make this opportunity available. But I think in Jasmine's presentation, she gets into the details of it. So I will let her take it from here, and I'm just here to answer any questions, but I think Jasmine will be able to answer them all.
Right, awesome. So yes, the dual enrollment grant came up and we wanted to jump on the opportunity. So I connected with Shannon right away and I was like, okay, how do we get this started? And we kind of went back and forth, and a lot of progress has been made this school year and I'm super excited about it. So this right here is just a quick overview of all the things I'm going to try to touch upon. I know I want to keep it brief, but also want you guys to at least be aware of everything that we have done and then also what we are continuing to do. So I have been the ECE coordinator because it was specifically just UConn for about, I think, 11 years at this point. And when we first started, or when I first started, there was only, I think, 3 classes that were running. And then it wavered from year to year. And currently for this school year, we have 5. And the 5 are up on the board. We've got the AP English 11 and 12. We got the AP Stats, and then the AP Calculus BC, and then our Education Rising class. So with that being said, every year we always try to promote more teachers and get it going. And I guess luckily at the same time we got the grant, we also had a lot of teachers really interested in doing dual enrollment. It is definitely becoming a bigger thing. I know on the screen you are missing one thing. I apologize for that. But so the classes that are up there right now are classes that have already been approved from the universities. And we will be teaching them for next year. The education one, which is on the bottom, is the Intro to Special Education. That is a class that we do not currently have. The teacher was approved to teach the class and we'll be doing curriculum writing, hopefully over the summer, to get that approved for next school year to then be able to implement for the 25-26 school year.
Right, so that'll come before this committee.
Correct.
Next year.
Yes.
So these are all classes, again, Jasmine, that we currently offer, that we went through the ECE process and got approved through the universities, correct?
Correct. So we don't currently offer it like for this school year, but we will be offering it for next school year, the 24-25 school year. And then these I just wanted to include because we still have a couple of teachers that their applications are pending for various reasons. And so these are potential additional courses that could still be approved at the university level. And it's AP Calculus, Honors, Pre-Calc, and then the IB English 11 and 12, and then the IB Sports. And obviously, as you can see, they are from 3 different universities, Southern, UConn, and Three Rivers. And I just wanted to kind of give you an idea on how, although there's additional classes, there's also a large selection of teachers wanting to teach these classes. So I just kind of wanted to put it out there to all of you guys to let you know who is interested, who's been, adding and applying, and then who's pending applications. So obviously there's a ton of names. I'm not going to read them all to you guys, but it just goes to show that there is a lot of interest up at the high school to teach these dual enrollment classes, which is super exciting.
Can you talk a little bit about what the process is for teachers to get certified or approved?
Absolutely. So each school has their own criteria. Like I said, we've been working with UConn the longest. Southern and Eastern are new to us for next year. And Three Rivers, we've been kind of off and on. Their programs have been changing. So when we can have classes, we do. And when we can't, we don't. But the application process typically is to fill out the application, submit all their transcripts, and then have it reviewed by their committee. Some of the key things that they're looking for in these teachers are that they have a master's in the specific content that they're being asked to teach. And if they don't have a master's in that specific content, that they have experience. So they've been in the classroom, they've been teaching this class for numerous years, and they might have had maybe an undergrad degree in it, or maybe a minor, or have taken a certain amount of classes within that subject area to be able to be promoted as well. So each criteria is slightly different between the different universities, but that's the gist across the board. And sometimes, for the pending ones, so sometimes they're not just going to straight deny a teacher. They might say, you know what, you could teach this class if you took one additional college course. So for the IB English specific ones, the teacher, Jess Dunnican, is going to take a summer class this year, which the grant is going to cover. And by taking that one additional class, she'll be able to then get certified to teach IB 11 and 12 as a dual enrollment class for next year.
Great.
Shannon?
Before we go on, I just wanted to, maybe you're getting into it now. I wasn't sure if there was information on the sort of the background and the purpose of the grant or not.
I didn't necessarily go into detail about the purpose, but I did break it down as far as like the budgets and the supplies and what the money would be used for. So if you want to spend some time and talk about the purpose, you can do that.
Yeah, so the purpose was to increase dual enrollment courses at Fitch. Compared to other districts, we actually, up until now, didn't really offer that many dual enrollment courses as others, such as like the Marine Science Magnet School, which I think you discovered offers like 12 dual enrollment classes. Is that right? Yeah, so this will bring us more in line with the other districts. And the state really, we could have used these funds to offer more courses with any Connecticut-based college. So it could be a private or a public university. There were several meetings, monthly meetings at minimum, that happened over the past year, especially in the beginning, as we looked at all the colleges that are in Connecticut and tried to figure out which would be the best ones to pair up with. And since we already had this relationship with UConn and the price for students to obtain credit there, and then the flexibility of where they can use their credit elsewhere, it seemed like UConn was kind of the priority because they really get the best bang for their buck by getting a credit from UConn. There were a few courses that UConn didn't offer, and that's why Jasmine and the teachers looked elsewhere. But there aren't any private universities on this list. And the primary reason is because We were concerned it would just be too cost prohibitive for the student, and that UConn credit can really be transferred to any school in the country.
Yes, absolutely.
Want to add
So, the one of the big things, just to go off what Shannon was saying as well, the transfer rate of the UConn credit is extremely high. It's about 87% that it'll transfer at 100%, which means what you're taking is what you're going to get at your new university. That other 13% is broken down into the credit may be accepted by the university, but might not be used for what it was taken for. So for instance, it was an English credit. They might not take it as an English credit, but they might still give them the 3 credits, but it'll be used as elective credits. So they don't necessarily lose the credits. And then the remaining, percentage within that 13 is universities, Ivy League schools, that just won't take the credit and don't take many credits of anything. But that is a very small number. So it's super exciting to be able to offer these kids an opportunity to take college level classes, as well as promote post-secondary education for some kids that maybe didn't think that they could do or they could afford. Which I'll get into the cost, I think, a little bit further down. And then I also know, Phil, did you give them the handout?
We have the slide.
Did you get the
Yes.
the sheet from UConn? I think you did, right? With the breakdown?
Could we stop here for a moment?
Yeah.
I
This
just
sheet
want to
here.
ask if Adrian or Mike have any questions at this point.
No, I'll wait.
Yeah, I'll wait for right now.
Okay. All right.
All right,
Well,
so-
we didn't have questions. Why don't
They
you just...
do have that sheet from UConn though. Yeah.
Perfect. So that's some additional, lot of data on that one sheet, but super informative and kind of breaks it down, our school in particular, with our needs and course enrollment and all of that stuff. So, if you guys have any questions afterwards, please feel free to ask. I'm going to try to stay on topic and just go over the budget. So, like Shannon was said, the purpose was to increase dual enrollment classes, and we kind of broke down the $40,000 grant into different sub areas. Furthering education to be able to teach a dual enrollment class and to get certified. Essential classroom supplies, so and textbooks and workbooks. Curriculum writing if necessary, so for that intro to education, special education class. Stipend for the project coordinator, orientation mileage. So all the teachers have to go to orientation at their school and sit down and meet with the department head at whatever university they would be teaching from, and really start to connect with them in the curriculum. And then obviously everybody's got a dream list. So if the, supplies still allowed, the funding still allowed, we wanted to get them any kind of dream materials to be able to be successful in their classroom. And then this is just a breakdown of the different partnerships that we have for this upcoming school year. Like Shannon said, we would love to explore additional opportunities. These 4 seem to be ready and willing and, have courses that did align with the courses that we were already teaching. So we weren't trying to recreate the wheel. UConn obviously has the biggest selection out of the 4. Eastern and Southern are new to our school system. But again, everybody's got a little bit different courses. So Eastern is got our math, so that's why we're going there for the maths. Southern, sorry. Eastern has got English elective options, which is what we are utilizing this year. And then the Three Rivers have a lot of the CTE courses. So we are looking into potential accounting and marketing for future years down the line, but for next year, the IB Sports Management class. And then I just, I'm kind of a numbers girl when it comes to showing the progress and where we've been and where we're going. So we've always had pretty low enrollment with the dual enrollment classes, but for next year, the classes have obviously almost tripled, but not there yet, which is great. And then if you go to the next slide, it talks about the actual course enrollment. So this year we have 238 students in a dual enrollment class. And next year, right now, we're slated to have about 446 students by adding the new courses. So we're shy of doubling it by about 30 students, but huge progress in a single year. So very happy with those numbers. And now any questions, if you guys have any?
I have one. Are we canceling any current offerings, class offerings, or not running any classes next year that we're offering this year?
For dual enrollment specifically?
No, I'm wondering if we're adding these classes, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Are we
Are they
canceling?
taking away from somewhere else?
Exactly, because I'm guessing that we're having fewer teachers next year in general in the building as a whole. So are we, yeah, well, exactly. Are we losing anything? Are kids not going to have other options?
Personally, I would say no. I know everybody's taking a hit. I mean, you know, I deal with it every day. We were talking just this afternoon about adjustments and things. But I think that the numbers are really strong in these categories that students really want to take them. Obviously, with downsizing in teachers, we are going to lose electives and other courses because that's just inevitable when we lose a teacher. But I don't think all in all, one is overpowering the other. I think it's reinforcing it, to be honest with you.
And just to be clear, Adrian, these are classes that are already running.
Yes.
They have now the ECE certification authorization attached to them. So these are classes that already exist at Fitch. Now they're just authorized as ECE. The teachers did not have to do, yeah, so these are not new courses.
Correct. Sorry.
All right, yeah. Sorry, I missed that in the beginning, so sorry
Nope,
about that.
that's okay.
I have a couple questions on the presentation, just details, and thank you for putting this together and pursuing and getting the grant and then pursuing the additional courses. On the last graph, that horizontal bar chart with student enrollment going up to, I guess, 446 students, are those individuals, or is it just, you know, if someone's taking 2 of those courses, do they count as 2 students on that graph?
On that graph, they would count as multiple. Yes. So if they're taking one student's taking multiple courses, they would show up twice. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
And then I forget where it was, but there's a list of, instructors that were currently involved in these programs, and then ones that were coming online. The first column on the left was 2009 to 2023. I assume they're continuing. I just ask.
So some of them do, some of them don't. For instance, Mr. Town is one that's on there, and he used to teach. He still teaches the maritime history class, but he doesn't teach it as a dual enrollment. Unfortunately, it was because of certification issue. It kind of lapsed. And he kind of just let it go instead of recertifying. And then the other ones are like Miss Jen Carter and Don Motzko. That depends on the year. If we have a lot more students and we're trying to minimize. So with English, they're very specific. We could only have 20 kids in a class. That's a university rule. And it's just English specific. So if we were to blow over our sections allotted, then those teachers would also weigh in. But Dan Giovinazzo and Laurel and Amy up until obviously this year, and then Alyssa McLean all teach English as well. So they've been able to divide the work and be able to run it. The only other person is Heather Freed. Heather Freed is new to us this year, and she came with ECE certification from her previous school. But we did not have any of the science classes that she was certified for as an ECE class when she came in. So that might be something she picks up down the line that I'm not too sure of, but she is certified.
Okay, so that left column, it really should read 2009 to 2023. I kind of thought it should read 2024.
Well, I would say 23, and I said 23 only because not everybody. So like for instance, Don Moscow, Sean Town, Jen Carter, Heather Freed, none of them taught this year
And then
at ECE.
Miss Hollenbecky did at least, and
Yes. Yes. So it's kind of half and half. So some of them are coming over and some of them are not.
okay. And then I was wondering about the timeline on the grant. I see it's our ESSER fund, so is that through this school year and that's it, or does it go a little longer?
Shannon,
goes a
do you
little-
want to?
Yeah, so all funds need to be spent by September 30th
Of,
of this year,
September. Yeah,
2024. Yeah, and we have a plan for that,
got
a
it.
spend down plan.
And then in your list of budget and supplies, maybe it's not applicable for the grant, but I was wondering, dual enrollment, as you mentioned, has a cost associated with the student itself, themselves. Is there any, some students and families can afford that easily, maybe, and some not so easily. Is there any provision for, help with that assistance?
Yes. So the universities vary with that as well. With UConn, they do free tuition for any student that is free and reduced lunch automatically. And their credits are different again for each school. So for UConn, it's $50 per credit. So typically a class is about $200, where Eastern is right now 25 a credit. So it's about 150. The difference is with Eastern, they do not give a discount to free and reduced lunch. So that is something new that we're learning this year. I just went to their conference a couple weeks ago and got that information. So I was a little bummed. But I think it's also, and Chris Dewar, who is the gentleman that runs the program, it's new. It's very new. I think he's been on it for about 2 years. So it's something that he wants to eventually do. So right now we do try to work with the students. With UConn, they've been fabulous. If I have a kid that's for a single year, there's a financial hardship within the home, I can get the fee waived for that single year, and then they can continue to pay the following years if necessary, or if they, can afford it. But we do try to work with the families as much as we can to reduce the fee. I don't think it's not on the sheet that I gave you guys, but in the presentation that I was just at, they did show a graph, which was pretty crazy. So it showed a 15 credits, which would be a single semester. And if they were to take those credits with UConn, it would be about $750 as an ECE credit. But if they were to take it at UConn in undergrad with room and board, it would be about $13,607. So there is a huge saving with the programs. I wish that, I don't know, Shannon, specifically, if we are able to use any of that money to support the students for this school year.
So the grant cannot be used for student fees. Because that will be an ongoing expense. And this is like most grants, it's a startup grant. So it was really for us to do what we needed to do to expand the course offerings. One thing Jasmine will be able to use it for this fall is to have a special event for registration, because now with so many more kids participating, all students need to be registered by October 15th. So she's going to try to have an event pretty close to September 15th when the registration first opens, to try to get as many, to have a kind of a special night, with food, and have folks come in, maybe extra support, and get as many students signed up, because it sounds like the registration process is a little cumbersome.
Yes.
So the grant can be used for that. There's a lot of flexibility in that. But if we want to do that again in the future, that would have to be, funds would have to come elsewhere.
All right, thank you. Obviously, you're all on top of it and thought of all these things. That's great. If it comes up in the future that there needs to sort of be a fund for a gap filling with some of the other universities, I'm sure it's not a big budget item. It could be considered in future budget years. My last question is, I noticed the IB, AP, English, both 11 and 12, mapped to the same course. And so am I inferring that those courses will not now be taught together, or they be, so will AP and IB English be taught together or kept separate?
They would be kept separate. The difference would be just the dual enrollment addition to it. So, you know, AP alone has a very different curriculum than IB, but they have a lot of pieces that can overlap. And so that's where UConn, the dual enrollment class can come in, and they kind of intertwine the two curriculums. So AP and dual enrollment can overlap and then produce a product, and then IB and dual enrollment can overlap and produce a product, but putting them together would not be beneficial because AP's a little, extreme from IB.
Yeah, that was my feeling too. I noticed actually in both well, obviously the AP, but the IB as well, it says that you can take the AP test for credit, even in the IB, and I imagine that students would be quite competitive at that, even through the IB. But I was wondering if anyone knows if that's an avenue that the students take.
I know that with the ECE though, that we're really hopeful that not only getting a certificate or a course in IB, but you can also get credit, and I think that's important too for kids taking IB.
Okay, sorry. Right.
I don't know if you heard me, but I just said I think it's beneficial to have the ECE married to the IB where kids can get credit along with the certificate.
Absolutely.
And then my last question, I think I know the answer to this, but for all the universities, is there, so a student taking a course that's dual enrollment, there's sort of a separate set of grade book, really. Like your grade at the university that you get is not the same you'd get in the high school. That's my understanding from my experience with it, but I don't know if that's true or not for all of them.
Yes, so they do have two separate grade books. Each teacher that gets approved to teach it is considered a professor at that university. So they have a university grade book as well as a Fitch grade book. And then it's additional assignments here and there. So our Fitch grade book kind of has everything. We include everything. And then the dual enrollment grade book might encompass, say 80% of what's done in the classroom. So the grade at the end, although the teachers say they're different, they are very similar within a few points. So it's not a huge differential between the two. But it is two separate grade books completely. So for the other big thing with the EC dual enrollment, which I didn't mention because there's just so much information, but they also get the credit by passing the class. They don't have to take a test. They don't need to do anything like additional. They have to get a C or better in the class, and they get the dual enrollment credit.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, I've got a couple more questions. How are the students' grades evaluated? Are there standardized tests that UConn gives us that they have to score on?
Yes. Yep. So there is, and that's why the teachers meet with them. They met on the 22nd of last month. They meet with the department head. They go through the syllabus that they have and the syllabus that we have. They evaluate everything. They tell them like certain things, like you have to implement this test, and this one. This one's optional, depending on your curriculum. And they break it all down because at the end of the day, they're getting UConn credit or Three Rivers credit or Eastern's credit on their transcript. So it's basically, they want to make sure it's the same material that is being taught in the university. So they want to make sure that certain things are absolutely met. And they understand that a lot of times we're not the only school that double dips with AP and the ECE. So they are aware that there's additional curriculum that has to be added in for AP purposes. But yes, they do absolutely have their own guidelines for grading.
All right. And then I'm assuming that the classes are going to be a little bit more challenging, or at least in areas than what we have existing. So this is kind of related, but I know that we don't have many higher level class offerings at the honors level. So like calculus or physics. Has there been any thought to maybe concern that if a student really can't hack it, you know, and they're a month or two in, and they really can't keep up to the course load, it seems like right now we have to drop all the way down to college prep, which really wouldn't look as good on a college transcript. So has there been any thought about that, about kids maybe, where kids are gonna go if they can't handle the workload?
I mean, we always think about that option, obviously, and not just dual enrollment, but just, as a counselor in general, having the various levels and not having honors in certain categories, that the drop is more extreme. If it's, say, just not a dual enrollment class, but AP US history, if they're not doing well, they can go down to honors. Depending on the year and the space provided, this year was a struggle. And so it really does come down to staffing and, having the room to be able to run those courses. And it's not that we don't necessarily run them because we don't want to, it's because we don't have enough students to run them or enough teachers to teach them. So there's an honors physics that has been taught before since I've been here. We've taught it a few times, but a lot of the times the push is either to get the kids to AP and fill those spots or to CP and fill those spots. And there's just not enough in the honors to either, fill the class and or enough staff to teach the class. So it is a struggle that we deal with all the time. I think that what we've done, especially with English, because that's our probably longest term dual enrollment class, they've done a great job working with the kids. If a kid drops, it's very far and few between. Honestly, this year, if it wasn't done within the first 2 weeks of school, we didn't have anybody drop. Nobody dropped late in English. Or in dual enrollment, I don't think at all this year. So that's huge. It doesn't always happen that way. We do usually get a few that will drop, but majority of the time the teachers work with them and try to push them to get through the class, that the best they can.
Yeah, I guess in addition to that, I just have concerns that, not wanting to push, not wanting kids to take, some kids are just not gonna be able to handle 5 AP or IB level classes. And if there's no, I can just say this from my own experience, if there's no class in the middle, then it ends up where they don't wanna take too hard of a course load where they're not gonna be successful. It seems like we're just missing that middle road, but maybe that is a conversation for a different day or.
Well, the other piece of it too, just so you're aware, is that not all the dual enrollment are AP level or honors level or IB level. We are trying, and that's a big push for some of the new classes this year. Oral communications is an EC dual enrollment level, so they will get the higher level credit, but it is a CP level class in general. Same thing with creative writing. Those are just English electives that are now dual enrollment. And then the intro to special ed, when that one comes about, that again will be another one that will not be a higher level. So we are trying to trickle in lower level, or I shouldn't say lower level, because they will be doing dual enrollment. So they still will have that rigor, but it won't be an additional AP and IB on top of the dual enrollment. So we're trying to meet that middle range with some of the dual enrollment classes for maybe a kid that wants to challenge themselves, but maybe isn't sure that IB or AP is where they're at yet. So it might be like a transition, maybe sophomore, junior year, they want to try one or two. And then by senior year, we get them into an AP class or an IB class if they do it freshman, sophomore year.
And we also have IB standard level. I know we have that course runs in mathematics, and that's really a good place where you might think of it like an honors. So they have standard level, I think, in multiple cores, but we've just never run all of them.
Definitely, I think it could be a topic for future conversation. I do want to be respectful of time because I know we started a little bit late and we still have a couple things to go. If there weren't any more questions about this particular topic, I can let Jasmine and Shannon go and we can move on to the nursing and EMT.
Yeah, well, do you have any questions?
No,
Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that. I'm assuming that when you say we have a time limit, that we're expecting to stop at 6.
Well, I don't
For
think,
two more groups.
I don't think that's
to
possible at
finish,
this
and
point,
we each
so
have
Good,
we
okay.
just wanted to move it
20
along.
Yeah,
25-minute
that's fine.
presentations.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you very
Shannon.
much. That was
Thank you guys for
wonderful.
your time. I appreciate it.
Very exciting for our students.
Absolutely. Have a great night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'm actually going to stay on and listen to the EMT discussion because I need to report on that to the Department of Education.
So moving along then, we'll start with the EMT. And do you have everybody there?
Yep, we have Kelsey and Karina. I just ask you both to, you can introduce yourselves, and I do have both of your presentations on my computer. We can start with the EMT. I guess, Kelsey, I just saw that you sent it to me, right?
I did, yes.
But if you could just introduce yourself to our group here and tell them a little bit about yourself.
So I am Kelsey Gomes. I was hired as the EMT instructor to begin the school year. I work full-time for Groton Ambulance, and I've been there for 13 years, as well as I teach for Lawrence Memorial Hospital, on top of teaching every day at Fitch. Partway through the year, we did bring in a second EMT instructor, Mr. Chris Jones, who is a full-time Pequannock Bridge firefighter, and also a paramedic at Lawrence Memorial Hospital as well.
Great. I'll bring up your PowerPoint. Right, that's it, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So
Take
we
us-
started off this year with 16 students enrolled in the program. All 16 of them have passed as far as their school grade is concerned. 14 out of the 16 have passed their national practical exam. And now those 14 are moving on to scheduling their national written exam. At that point, once they pass that, they will be both certified in the state of Connecticut as well as nationally. So that allows them to be able to move to other states and obtain their EMT license in other states. All of our students ended up being trained in basic life support, so CPR, first aid, AED, stop the bleed, epinephrine administration, blood glucose monitoring, incident command systems, bloodborne, airborne pathogens, all on top of our EMT curriculum. We began a new internship program with Groton Ambulance. 4 students chose to apply for that internship program, and all 4 students were hired by Groton Ambulance. For their internship program, they are currently going through Groton Ambulance's training program, getting paid to do so. That way, when they have their license in hand, they will already be trained and be able to go right on the road as full EMTs. So that program has been working out great. And all of our EMT students completed a minimum of 8 hours of observation time with Groton Ambulance and Pequannock Bridge Fire Department outside of school hours as part of their course requirement for the EMT program.
And I will forward this to the board, this presentation. And I saw you guys looking for it, so I apologize that you didn't have it beforehand, but I'll make sure you guys get it.
So one of our major highlights of this year was Extrication Day. We put this together. A lot of schools used to do this pre-prom to have a mock accident scene to portray the dangers of both distracted and impaired driving. We put this day together. We presented it to the senior class that chose to participate. And following that demonstration, we had our EMT students participate in actually cutting up the cars, how we remove patients from the cars. It's an extra step that some EMT programs do and some don't, but it really adds to their learning experience to be hands-on. On top of that, we were able to get Lifestar, which is the medical helicopter here in Connecticut, to come land at Fitch. All the students got to take a look at the helicopter, speak with the Lifestar crew, which they are amazing people. And I just want a quick shout out to our community partners, Groton Ambulance, Pequannock Bridge Fire Department, the Lawrence Memorial Sim Lab, Groton Town Police, Groton Auto Body, Bridge Market, and the New London County Peer Support Group. We couldn't have made that day possible without all of those people donating their time, staffing, equipment, and efforts to make it happen.
I want to thank you. Matt Brown shared that information. I was able to share it in my weekly update and in the board notes. So we were really pleased. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. So these are all the kids with some of the first responders that were here. The next slide is an action shot from the actual extrication. We were able to use the sim mannequin from the hospital there as the patient beyond myself. And then this is all of us with the helicopter right there on the baseball field. So it was a really exciting day. For next year, we currently have 14 prospective students. And we look forward to growing our relationship with Ready CT. I know Karina is going to talk about that. But for our program, they came in a little later in the year. And I'll let Karina go into all the things that they do, but we look forward to working more with them next year. And I just want to thank the Groton Board of Ed and the Fitch administration team for standing by us this year and going along with all of our crazy plans like Extrication Day and seeing how it all came together.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kelsey. Before we move on to the nursing, do you want to entertain questions, any questions?
I thought that they were, my instruction was going to be just to ask them if you had them, so. And I have none.
Yeah, is that offered as a class? So is
Yes.
it one?
Yep,
Is it
so-
just one credit all year?
It is actually 2 credits because I meet with the kids every school day for one block. So I see them A and B day for the entire year to meet that hours requirement for the state of Connecticut for the EMT program.
And is it just seniors?
So we do accept seniors and juniors. There is an age requirement through the state where they have to be 16 by the end of the class. So there is an age requirement associated with it. So we look for, the juniors, seniors to be enrolled in the program.
All right.
And you mentioned the second instructor, Chris Jones, I believe, is he teaching that class as well, or is it an additional class? I didn't
No,
catch
so
that.
we basically, we're both instructors. So some days I am there and some days he's there. Part of the reason behind that is because we both do unfortunately have to work full-time jobs on top of it, and our schedules are a little bit crazy. And we both bring different aspects to the program. So in a standard EMT program that's taught outside of a school system, most are a team of 5+ instructors that teach the program, because everyone learns differently. And with being an EMT and learning skills, there's no one right way to do it. There's many different ways to accomplish the same thing. So I felt that it actually would benefit the students in the long run to bring in another instructor. He's also a paramedic, so he's a higher level of care than I am, and can bring a different aspect to the classroom. It worked out very well once we both started teaching in the spring. And the kids really enjoyed having 2 different faces, especially seeing them every single day.
Thanks. When you were mentioning your 3 positions, I thought each one of those sounded very, very time intensive. Thank you for your dedication.
All right, Karina, you could introduce yourself and I will share your presentation as well.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Karina Vanderberg, and I am also here new this year. I came on to teach the nursing program, and we've had a really successful year. I do have some years of experience, certainly as a registered nurse. So I've loved my years of patient care, and this has been a different experience, but I've had a great time really getting to teach these students on, yeah, I'm happy to share with you all the things that we've done. All right, so just to start, I had 6 students when I took the position at the beginning of the year. There were 6 nursing students registered. We had some things that needed to be done when I came on. We were able to get the Department of Public Health to come into our classroom and do an inspection and approve our program for 2 more years. That's usually, how often this needs to happen. And so we had a successful visit and approval for 2 more years. All of my students obviously did really well. They were all able to pass the class, and we were all able to test in site. So prior to me coming on, I know that in the past, Prometric, which is the testing company, had been coming to Fitch, but not for a few years. So I was happy to be able to have Prometric come back to Fitch. So the students were actually able to test on site, and 5 out of my 6 students were able to pass their exam, and now they are certified nurse assistants at this point. So they already have their certification and they are working on employment. I have one of my students who has already received a job offer, and she's very excited about it. I do have one student that was unable to pass, so my students actually have to pass both exams, written and practicals at the same time. And I have one student who was unable to pass, and she is going to be retesting on June 5th. So I have been able to provide remediation for her, and she's working hard to try to get her to pass, hopefully in a couple of days. On top of their certified nurse assistant certification, they've all been certified in BLS, or basic life support, which is CPR, as well as stop the bleed. So they'll have all the certifications that they'll need in order to seek employment in the field. Another great thing that we did this year was we were able to start a partnership with Stone Ridge and Avalon Health Center. They are a great facility in our community, and so I was very happy to be able to build this partnership with them. Part of the program for the certified nurse assistant in a high school is that students actually have to complete 60 hours of clinicals at a long-term care facility. And so this year we completed our 60 hours at Avalon, and we had a great experience. Avalon was very pleased to have the students there. They were very happy to continue this partnership. And of course, we were also very, very happy to be able to be there and to be able to work in that setting. So during these clinical hours, the students actually get to be part of a care team. They get to work alongside nurses, physicians, physical therapists, speech pathologists. They're learning a lot of hands-on nursing skills, but they're also learning a lot of other soft skills, right, of real life and what it is to work in a professional setting. So this is very valuable. We are currently working really hard to secure a contract with Bacchus Hospital. So I know that we're kind of towards the end of that contract. We're hoping that it will be able to be in effect for next year. I would like to be able to give my students some acute care experience as well. So I think that's why the hospital setting will be important to incorporate into the program. So yeah, I guess I just get a little bit of a highlight of some of the things that we do in clinicals. Like I mentioned, we work as part of the team. They do apply the things that we learn in class. So we have a lab in the classroom, and we practice all of our skills in the lab. And the students have to show me that they're able to provide or to do these skills in the lab before we move it into the clinical setting. Because as you'll see, they're actually caring for patients. And so we move our skills from the lab into the clinical setting. They, of course, need to have good understanding of patient safety and infection control, which they all do. And when we're at the clinical setting, they care for patients. They help them with their activities of daily living. So they're going to help feed them or bathe them or transfer them, and all of the things that nurse aides are, doing while at work. And on top of that, they really get to learn how to speak with patients and caring for those who are, sometimes even suffering from dementia or other cognitive disabilities at this point. And so it's really fulfilling for the students and really eye-opening for them as well. And I know that Ms. Gomes mentioned this, but the nursing program has actually worked really closely with Ready CT. I was really happy to have their support. They have been coming into our classroom and doing workshops with the students. They did about 10 workshops this year, and those workshops are really just career readiness skills. So things such as conflict management, professional resume development, interviewing, email etiquette. they really help the students and help them prepare them for seeking employment, if that is the route that they would like to go right after school, or even if they wanted to continue into college. These are important skills for the students to have. Ready CT has also helped us with guest speakers. So they have been able to bring some guest speakers into the classroom. And they've also been helping us with field trips. One of the field trips that we took this year was to the Norwich Chamber of Commerce Career Expo, which I got really great feedback from all of my students who went. They were able to meet with a lot of different potential employers like Hartford Healthcare, Young New Haven, as well as long-term care facilities. And they were even able to have mock interviews. So they had to have their resume ready. They went in, they interviewed for jobs, and they were getting feedback from the interviewers as far as what things they should be working on, or, in the case of the students, they really did a great job. So all the feedback was very positive. And then I have a nice picture of my students just having a good time. They really do love the class. Like I said, we started with 6 students this year, and next year I have 10 students that enrolled in the program. So really looking forward to growing the nursing program again. That is my goal.
All right. Thank you, Karina. And Kelsey.
Do you have questions?
Yeah, I just have a couple. So I've seen that classroom, and I can see why you're getting more and more students, prospective students, because you can tell that looks like a healthcare setting within a high school setting. It's great to see. I was just wondering how many students would that class size max out? It seems like it couldn't be a normal 20 in a room for that.
No, so the class itself, I know in the past it's been maxed out at 16. I did go to a conference a couple of months ago where I met with other teachers from Connecticut schools who have the same class. They all seem to max out around the 15 mark. For me, I think the most important thing is that I can only bring a max of 8 students to a clinical site at a time, as there are, because I have to bring them under my RN license, and I can only bring 8 students at a time. So having 16 means that I go to clinicals twice, and even for next year having 10, I'll have to go to clinicals twice. But more than that, I don't think it will be sustainable. So I think 16 will be the cap because of the clinical hours.
And that's how we did it in the past, Katrina, I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. And this is I presume, an all-year course. Is it 1 credit, 2 credits?
It is a 2 credit, so we do have to meet the 100 hours plus the 60 hours of clinical. So similar to what Ms. Gomes was sharing earlier, because of that, we meet twice. Sorry, we meet every day, so it's a 2 credit class.
Thanks. And then I saw a mention early presentation, the healthcare career pathway. We're working towards that. I can see these are great building blocks. I was wondering what else would be necessary to have a full career pathway, because it already seems like you're launching people into healthcare careers right now.
So
I do teach I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go on. No, you answer that.
Okay, I was going to say that I do teach an introduction to healthcare. It's right now currently called Diversified Health Occupations. So that is a class that students usually take prior to taking the nursing class. It is an introduction to healthcare, and it's usually offered for those 10th and 11th graders prior to them committing to the nursing class.
Armida, you might have some answers with the career pathways as far as I'm sure there's sciences that they need to take as well.
You know what I was thinking, when we have our 8th grade fairs, or we have our student fairs at the school, Karina's class and Kelsey's class are the classes that the students gravitate towards. So I think they should be expecting more students in those programs. But even I'm thinking about, Karina, some of the courses you're going to be proposing for the upcoming years, that will definitely set the path for more students to go right into the medical field. If not nursing, some medical terminology, some I don't know, radiology, whatever's needed in order to do well and be successful in the medical field. So they're becoming even more popular. There are some popular classes, and I always say, psych and all those other classes, but definitely the allied health is becoming even more popular.
Thanks. I think those are wonderful programs, both of them, and particularly with the inaugural years, it should be celebrate all the students and your efforts as well should be celebrated. Be a nice thing for the Board of Ed to extend to the town council perhaps, or
Yeah, I would love to share this
or the
information.
library or Thrive 55 plus just to get you're already out in the community, so that visibility will grow, but we
Right.
could help it
Good
along the
idea.
way.
All right, thank you both for joining.
Did you have
Thank you.
anything?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Good night.
Great job, Kelsey and Karina.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
guess leave this on.
All right, and then the
World
troopers,
language.
the world language troopers, thank you for
I got you all in board notes too this week
hanging
for your
on.
good news.
And I do know again, Lee, if you could, do I have this? Because the board does not have this particular one, but I will forward it on along with the, they did get forwarded the outline of the curriculum, which, the learning arc,
Okay,
okay?
perfect.
Otherwise, yeah, you can turn it over and make sure everybody gets introduced along the way at some point.
Okay, so maybe I could just start with having Barbara and Eva just introduce yourselves, and then they're going to chime in at different slides. So why don't you go ahead?
So I'm Barbara Clark. I'm teaching French this year. Last year I taught French and Spanish. And I have been working with Eva and a whole big crew of everyone to work on the curriculum with Leah from grade 4 up. And I've been a big part of the carousel units and also the year 1 and year 2 units. And Eva?
Hi, I'm Eva Papathanassiou. I've been teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade Spanish for, 19 years now in Groton. I've been working with Leah and Barbara, Kathleen, and all the other ladies that you see pictured here on this curriculum for about 2 years now, and we've got a lot to show you. So, Leah, back to you.
And Laura Johnson, who is our humanities coordinator, and so she's been overseeing social studies and world language. So thank you.
Yeah, everybody on the screen here has had a part in it, from Carmita to Laura to Eva and to Barbara and the people around this table. I am just so excited to be here tonight because the work that has been done over the last couple of years with the help of Shannon doing the DODEA grant is just incredible. So I'm here tonight, really, it's a celebration. I'm so excited that a couple of the teachers were able to be here as well. And I just wanted to start with saying, where we started was stopping to think, what are the needs of this program? And as you got MYP accreditation just a couple of years ago, that means that you must have language acquisition. So that's a big part of that 6th to 10th grade experience. And so we said, well, what is that going to look like? We already have language program here. We already have some curriculum. How are we going to make sure that it aligns with all of the IB standards? And then how are we going to increase enrollment? We also identified that we need to increase target language use. Sorry about that. We also addressed the need to use more target language, and that reflects the national standards as well as the IB standards. And finally, to increase proficiency levels in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So the literacy growth has been a huge part of the focus of our work. And in my work as a consultant with districts across our country, as well as Asia and Europe, this is the work that I lead. It just so happens that I live in your town, but this is what I do for real life. So I just wanted to say it was just such an amazing experience working with these teachers. And what we did was, I'm just going to give you, we're going to give ourselves like 20 minutes to give you the overview here. But this is where we started. I know this is super tiny. This is not meant for you to read, but I just wanted to give you a sense that we came together in this room and we had chart paper everywhere. And we said, what are we going to take our students through so that they could use language in real world experiences and really gain proficiency over the course of our program? So you can see that we start off with carousel, then year 1, then year 2, year 3. You have the bigger scope and sequence in your board documentation there. But I wanted you to also see that we were thinking about the global context as well as the proficiency targets. So me, as a graduate of Ledyard High School in 1989, learned about language, but we didn't use language. This shift is the language is both the vehicle and the content of instruction. So if you're going to do that, that means that you're going to run classes in the target language. Well, if you're going to run classes in the target language, then you have to set these children up for success. So we really worked. Every person in the department was part of this. And so you'll see that, yes, we had a family unit, but now we're doing family in a different way. And we're going to align it with identities and relationships. We already had a unit about innovators, but now we're going to align that with globalization and sustainability. So you'll see that this was complete buy-in from the whole department. This was not something that just one group worked on. The important part when you're shifting from a traditional curriculum, which was in place prior and is in place in many parts of our country, did not have proficiency targets. If you are going to run a advanced program that is really going to be designed to get the kids to use language and get the seal of biliteracy, you must set targets. So I am on many national committees to expand the seal of biliteracy in all 50 states. And what we do is the first thing you do is come in and you set these targets. So you can see that we have put together the targets. So as the kids experience a carousel in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we're going to bring them up to a novice mid. This is not going to be your traditional program where kids are going to learn some little vocab and be able to label colors. They're going to actually use language for real purposes. You can see that we've very clearly outlined it. You'll see that we started aligning ourselves with all of the ACFL updated standards to look at how do you assess proficiency. As a 1989 grad, we spent every part of our assessment focused on accuracy, which is one part of the tree, but we want to get these kids thinking about creating with functions. And we also want them expanding their text type. So that's where we're really focusing on the literacy. How do you get the carousel kids to work from words to phrases in reading, words to phrases in speaking? How do you get them to move up to sentences? How do we get them to use connecting words, transition words? So you will see that in the L2, which is the target language, you will see that we are reinforcing all of the literacy strategies that you are already working on with your ELA classes. It's also important to note that Lisa Corcoran and I have worked on looking at things, recognizing phonics in Spanish, and then also phonics in your elementary program. So I just wanted you to see that it's a big shift so that the kids are growing up from little tiny saplings with French or Spanish, and then they start to expand their branches and they start to expand their root system. So we as a curriculum committee are really focused on making these changes. So the first place that we started, Barbara mentioned that she's done a lot with working on the carousel. We had people in different curriculum committees. So these are the units that we've created. Anything that's in your board documentation that's hyperlinked, you can go in and actually see those units. And so all teachers know exactly what the daily learning targets are. They know exactly what the priority vocabulary, priority structures are. So, so these are some examples of kids are writing postcards home first from Groton, then they take the hot air balloon and they land in Argentina, then they take the hot air balloon, then they land in Spain, and they're writing postcards home. So I'm gonna turn it over to Barbara now to talk a little bit about how we're really setting these students up for success. So Barbara, take it away. Just unmute if you could.
So you're looking at an example of a postcard, but when Leah switches to the next slide, you'll see that we got them to that by teaching them vocab in context instead of memorizing a list of vocabulary, having them use it in the context so that they're not just learning how to conjugate the verb to live or how to conjugate the verb to be, like most of us probably learned. So they're using the chat mats to support them for each stage of what we're doing, seeing things in sentences so that they can learn to express thought more independently, but with the support of modeled language that they're hearing and seeing. They're hearing all of this from us every day, but the bigger part is that it's more about them doing the talking, aiming for the students doing as much talking, if not more, than the teacher over the course of a class period. Helping them to talk in sentences and to give reasons and to give descriptions instead of just answering in one word responses right from the beginning, so that they're pushing towards those upper levels of communication that they'll need by the time they get to middle school and high school, preparing to do the exams that they do sophomore and junior year for STELA biliteracy, so that they're working their way towards it from day one.
And I just want to say that these might look like things that were created by a publisher. Instead, it was a DODEA grant that funded. This was actually created by Barbara in Canva. And the resources are literally the envy of any district because they're all focused on functions of asking questions, describing the animal, describing the colors. So it's real use of language. And so the money that we've spent over the DODEA grant over the past 2 years, when we're done with this grant, you will have a really robust curriculum with all of these supplemental resources to make sure that students are set up for success. And so in the folder, which I could show you, I just don't want to leave the screen right now, we probably have 50 of these right now to support learners. And the difference, and I'll show you in the data when I get a little bit further, you will see that this is a huge benefit. Glastonbury Public Schools was looking at some of the work that was done in Groton, and they were thrilled. Now, Glastonbury Public Schools is one of the best language programs in the entire country and has a long line of very successful students testing in at the end of elementary school, and they were asking if they could come and visit here. So I was like, yes, this is wonderful. So so just great to see. So I just want, I'll take over here and just share that we have, Barbara was one of the people on the carousel committee, but then everybody's in different groups. We also did the year one curriculum. I put that in parentheses because 6th and 7th grade, the schedule is a skinny, which means that they have half the amount of time. So 6th plus 7th grade equals 1 year. So in there, you can see those are the units that we've built so far. And again, the important thing to note here is that the focus is to provide authentic, real-world opportunities to communicate effectively. We're building out that IB learner profile of becoming a communicator in L1, your first language, and L2, your second language. And some of these students are actually working on their third language. I'd love to have Eva feel free to jump in at this one, but I want to just say that one of the happiest parts of our year was introducing Spanish for Spanish speakers. These kids are so proud of the work that they're doing. Before, they have always been placed in the regular Spanish class, so they're learning just like my kids from day one, and they didn't have anything different for them. There is nothing in our entire tri-state region that has Spanish for Spanish speakers at the middle school. And if there's a class for you to go and observe, go see the Spanish for Spanish speakers, because it is absolutely a wonderful addition. And so we set the target of intermediate low for reading and writing. Now, many of these students are the students that are not necessarily reaching the proficiency levels in English yet. And so I'll be excited to share that, that slide with you about the data. Eva, did you want to jump in with anything about this?
I just want to say that my own students are really excited that not only does their teacher speak Spanish, but to share the different culture that they have from their different countries. So I have kids from El Salvador and kids from Colombia and Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, you know, and a couple of other, Guatemala and Ecuador. And they're really just excited to be like, oh, well, this is what we do in my country for that, or this is what we do here, and that's different. And it's just really great for them to be so proud of where they're from and to have that opportunity to share it with each other, but to share with me, and then, you know, hopefully like when they're in 8th grade, to share with a larger community.
On the nationwide level, I can tell you that we've had a lot of concerns about the lack of equity with the seal of biliteracy because we're finding far fewer heritage students able to pass the seal of biliteracy because they can't read and write in their own language. And so this is a huge push towards equity. Those kids, you will see the pride that they're writing about their home country of El Salvador. They never could write before. So this is a huge win for Groton Public Schools and for the students.
And I know you're going to touch on that in a later slide, but our Spanish for Spanish speakers really rocked when they did the Apple testing, and their writing skills were just really outstanding and really impressive.
That's terrific. We also started into year 2 curriculum. You can see that everything that I've put in there, any units I've mentioned are complete. So we've made some real headway. So we're up to year 2. You can see it goes up through coming soon, but we did start a Biodiversity Expo in order to allow students to really explore the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and help them to solve problems like climate change, protect life underwater, protect life on land. And so you can see a couple pictures here. The kids were so happy to be able to present. All of their writing is in the target language. They each had different regions or countries. They worked in groups of 3 or 4, and you can see that they had a passport, and the kids would present to each other. Kids were writing, kids were speaking, and then the other kids were listening and writing the takeaways. So again, that would be something for another day to explain, but really we want to show that this curriculum is focused on having them communicate and present in the target language so that we can show that they are truly becoming communicators. This is the exciting part though. So, and I'll keep this brief. Okay, so here's our data dive. So we come together, we take hours, go through all the scores, do the Apple testing. That's all covered by the DODEA grant. Again, everything that we've been using this DODEA grant for is to write the curriculum, do embedded PD, which happens during the curriculum writing, and to be able to test the students to say, is our instructional work working? Is our curriculum work working? So we said, okay, so what does it look like? What did our data dive reveal? Okay, so last year was our benchmark. It was the first time taking the test. Is called the Apple test. So you're going to see that last year we had the benchmark, 37% were approaching, meeting, or exceeding. Now I want you to note in the middle column that you have there, that's the target. So these targets are set, but this was predating our new curriculum. So now this year we're able to test and say the kids have been in the curriculum for year 1. That's why we're really focused on this year 1 tonight.
So again, they haven't seen this before, and it's hard to see on the screen.
Okay.
So just, if you want to read the numbers really quickly as you go from slide to slide.
Okay. So you'll see that on the left column, I put below target in green, approaching target in blue, meets target, and then exceeds target. So for that first year, last year when we did the test for the first time, predating our curriculum, we saw that we had 37% in Spanish. In the case of French, we saw that we had 26% approaching, meeting, or exceeding the target. So then we decided, let's go in and try this again this year. Now you can see that we moved from 37% approaching, meeting, or exceeding in year 1 to 55%. So we know that we're seeing huge gains with the new curriculum being used, with the high leverage teaching strategies that are advocated through ACFL, which is a national organization, and with the collaboration. The collaborative work amongst this group of teachers is outstanding. It's enough to bring tears to your eyes. It's really been the reason that we're seeing these gains. In the case of French, we went from 26% moving up to 48.5%. These gains, you don't see this. Now, I just want you to know, I'm working with districts across the entire country. I'm working with schools in Vietnam, in London, the American School in London. They're not seeing gains like this. This is extraordinary. So, and I'm not just saying, like the numbers are showing us here, but I also want you to see that when you're looking at meets target last year, we were looking at either 5% or 5%. This year, we went to meets target is 25%, and meets target 11%, but you have a higher number in the exceeds. So I just wanted to show you that the growth isn't only in the approaching the target, it's in the actual meeting of the target in literally 1 year. So this is outstanding in 1 year. It's actually quite surprising. Benchmark for year one at Fitch. Remember, you can take year one as a 6th or 7th grade, or you could be new to the district or new to the language. So you could be taking that at the high school. Last year, we saw that they were at 2% approaching meeting or exceeding for Spanish, and we saw that they were at 0% for approaching meeting or exceeding in French. I think you're going to be happy with these gains. Obviously, something's working with year one at the high school because we jumped from 2% to 32%, and we jumped from 0% to 55%. So clearly, the instructional tasks are setting the students up for success. The teachers are collaborating. They're viewing each other's classes. They're recording students, having students set goals and say, how do you stop using phrases and move up to simple sentences? How do you stop using simple sentences and use connected sentences? So we've got anchor charts, and we've got those chat mats to say, are you diversifying your transition words? Are you diversifying your sequencing words? So we're pushing them, and you can see that the gains are here. Benchmark for year 3, we haven't gotten to that curriculum yet. You notice that we saw carousel year 1 and year 2. We have not touched year 3 yet. And you'll see that we're not seeing big jumps there yet. So we went from 18% to 25% and 25% down to 9%. So I'm hopeful that next year, as we continue this DODEA grant, putting the money into the creation of this curriculum, into the creation of the professional development to improve year 3, I'm hopeful that we will see those gains in the year 3 at the end of next year. Okay, this is where it's going to bring tears to your eyes, though. As Eva said, you are going to be very happy to see this. We set the goal of Spanish for Spanish speakers, to hit intermediate low. Now, many of these students are not writing at a proficient level in English. They have not had proper schooling in their heritage language. They speak at home. We got approaching, meeting, or exceeding the target at 87.5%. Now, it is only one class. All of the 16 kids that were tested took it. All the 16 kids in the class took the test. This includes all IEPs, includes all 504s, and yes, they're in that class. So I just want to say that this kind of excitement about the program should really be celebrated. So Eva, I'm going to turn it over to you for a couple of reflections here so that we can wrap up and answer questions.
So Leah had asked just for some reflections from the people who've been working on this. And I really felt that the ability to collaborate on the living curriculum documents with teachers of different languages has enriched our language instruction. So getting to hear from Barbara, what's working with her in French, or Josh, who was our student teacher this year, talking with the high school teachers, or even when we have like the teachers of the deaf in some of our stuff, it really helps to enrich my own language instruction and see something else that I could be doing or using with my students. Kathleen Nidbala says that creating resources with very clear proficiency targets has made students more comfortable and also more motivated to speak and set goals for their language learning. We do a lot of recording in the classroom. We do a lot of different scenarios where they have a few minutes to kind of jot down some notes and then use their chat mat and talk with another student. And that helps them to just really become more comfortable. And then they try to set their own goal for the next time that we do it based on how they did. And we're really seeing that that's helping them become more comfortable. Kate Serio from the high school says building units of study that contain priority vocabulary and were geared toward building proficiency helps students begin to use the language for a purpose. All students were more successful this year, including students with modifications. Leah really likes to take pictures of all of us every time we meet, no matter what we look like. So there's that. Ashley.
We like to have snacks too.
What's that?
We also like to have snacks.
Yeah, we do. Ashley says that it's been wonderful to provide the opportunity to our heritage learners with the Spanish for Spanish speakers class. In the class, we've learned from each other, explored the many different traditions, customs that each family values. I truly feel, or she truly feels, as if we have built a community. They've worked very hard to develop reading and writing skills and recognize how much they have grown in writing. They're excited about testing for the seal of biliteracy in high school. And you could see that just from the results that Leah shared just a few minutes ago, about 87.5% of that group being able to either approach, meet, or exceed our goal.
So I'm gonna, sorry, that was Ashley for that one. I'm gonna stop my share now so that you can feel free to ask questions and get a sense of where we're going from here. But if there's one thing that I hope that you're really sensing is that I can't be thankful enough for the work that these teachers have put in. And many of them aren't here tonight, and we really focused on the year one, but we're starting to grow the seal of biliteracy. We're really starting to grow this elementary, and this was the first year of the program for the carousel. So maybe next year we'll get a chance to feature carousel and be able to, show you our gains there. They are just testing this week. So it'll be great to just get some benchmark and say, how did we do with only 1 year and only, one semester for each language.
And
So
that seal of biliteracy comes with credit from universities. I know Southern gets 9 credits for a seal.
yes.
So that's another wonderful thing in their repertoire as they go off.
So I am an ECE certified UConn adjunct, and UConn is not currently offering credits for it, but UConn will give you the proper placement. In other words, they won't put you in a lower level Spanish if you come in with the seal of biliteracy. They will put you in the proper level. But if you go to Southern Connecticut State University, they will literally give you 9 credits when you walk through the door. And if you get it in French and Spanish, as one of the girls who told me that she's going to do at the breakfast on Friday, she said, I am getting it in both levels, in both languages. And she was just as cute as a button telling us that, oh, she will get it. She's close. She knows that. So that was exciting. So I'll turn it over to you for questions.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just wondering, so it looks like French and Spanish, have other districts done more than just those 2 languages?
Yes. So, it really depends on the district that you're working with. They could have Italian, Mandarin, German, it depends on the district. It's also a question of staffing it and maintaining the certified teachers. Right now, we have French and Spanish as well as ASL. But ASL does not count for IB diploma. So ASL, and I did have many calls with IB in Geneva. They are not revisiting that for the next 10 years. So that is set, that ASL could not be part of it at this point, but you could add additional languages, yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, it seems like offering this at the younger ages kind of puts kids into a track, but it doesn't give the options of the other, or introduction even to the other languages. So that's just my concern.
So, we've been very mindful that you have both languages at the elementary school that are available at the middle school. That was a very intentional design. Many school districts will only do Spanish or just choose one for the elementary, but then it kind of cuts off your other program. So yes, they do have both languages at the elementary and then both at the middle and high school.
Yeah.
What does
Well,
the
it's
glass?
just, I'm more talking about the transition into high school. Whereas if you spent 2 or 3 years in Spanish and don't want to speak Spanish, or you want to speak, I don't know what all the offerings are, ASL, or Latin is no longer offered. What else is actually offered?
So you could switch to ASL, or you could add on ASL, but you also need to consider the fact that we are an IB district. So middle years program asks that you choose a language for 6th and you stay with it till 10th to the greatest extent possible. Now, are kids going to switch? Yes. Are there going to be some changes that need to happen along the way? We also are a military community, so we're taking kids in. So you're always going to have entry points into the different languages.
So are all kids that take foreign language will be in this program in middle school, in elementary school?
All IB learners must be exposed to language acquisition to the greatest extent possible according to the IB program requirements.
All right, so they're making a choice to go IB in 4th grade, or will be?
No, that's just part of your learning experience. You are not PYP, which is a primary years program. Now, if you were at some other point, you could, because you'd have access to language. But obviously, the earlier, as you know, that we start language, the more receptive the brain is to actually acquiring a language.
The goal being, if the language you choose, after the carousel, you choose a language in 6th grade,
Correct.
Ideally, you carry with you.
So that you would actually be able to get the seal by literacy. They don't, the idea is that they don't want a kid doing 1 year of Spanish 1, 1 year of French 1, 1 year of ASL 1, and not really being able to communicate in any language. So kids will switch, but you want to try to get them to some level of competence within the language.
Yeah, so all kids in middle school will be taking foreign language?
Correct, correct.
All the way through?
And we now have another option. We have Spanish for Spanish speakers, which is a huge bonus because now this is not Spanish for Spanish speakers where they're focusing on speaking, it's focusing on building the literacy skills. So I was able to see some of the student work in English and in Spanish. The difference between what they were able to write in their home language was outstanding. You know, so that is going to transfer to the L2, which is in that case, the English, their second language.
I think it will help them in both aspects.
It will help them in both
languages.
for sure, yes.
So tell me about a Glastonbury, because I'm interested in your question, like a Glastonbury that's so revered. How many languages do they give to their
So
students?
Glastonbury has the oldest standing Russian program and the most effective program in the country. It's 55 years old. They also have Chinese. They also have French, Spanish, and that's it. And I don't think they have ASL, but they start in first grade and then they have different on-ramps. So if you move to the district in fourth grade, if you move to the district in sixth grade, you're able to pick up different languages along the way. But what they do is they have a very high level of syllabi literacy rate, one of the highest in the state. And the only way you can get the syllabi literacy is if you have a long and strong scope and sequence. It is impossible. I could say you're the most talented language learner possible, and I give you 10 months that even if you're talking about the Language Institute in Monterey, California, that the military needs to get people up to quickly up to a higher level. You can't just say, I'm going to give you 150 hours of instruction and expect it to stick that quickly. So you need to have that long sequence. So having the elementary will really give us a jump start to get more kids to the syllabi literacy. To get to intermediate mid, it is, it's a struggle. That's a big, you need to be able to function and write in the language, create with the language, and do it in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So, or all four modalities.
We have talked at Learn, the CAPS, superintendents in this area, about providing classes, like a lot of people are interested in Chinese, but finding a Chinese professor who can teach the language, and very expensive if each of our small districts did it. But to collaborate and to have something that would be like a hybrid model, so it would be, instruction that would be online, but very interactive, and to be able to share that resource. And so, or Latin, because we didn't get enough Latin students. I actually have a Latin teacher who could offer that for the whole district. So we're going to look into that. Kate Erickson, who is the, in charge of Learn, is going to pull us together, and we're going to have a conversation about how can we make that work.
And this conversation is not just happening K to 12. I'm working with Columbia University and also Yale and Cornell with the Tibetan teachers, professors. They're trying to get their university students to be able to get the syllabi literacy in modern Tibetan. So you want to think about how do you organize your 6 semesters of modern Tibetan before moving into the classical Tibetan so that you're really able to read, write, speak, and listen and be able to demonstrate this, because that test is what you would give to the military, to an employer, to anyone to say, I certify that you are at this level of Tibetan or this level of Spanish. So this is the work that they're doing as a district is really setting students up for a much higher rate of syllabi literacy awardees, which we'll see, but it's going to be a couple of years down the line because they're going through the system right now.
Yeah, I have a few questions. I can see we're bringing people up through Spanish and French. I was wondering at the high school level, are we committed to continuing French, and is the staffing okay for that?
So right now, there was a cut in the high school position, so it did go down to one person. So it is now one teacher, and so she has all of the levels. And so I think that's one of the benefits of having somebody like Barbara, who is dual cert like I am. it's important that we continue to look for candidates that have the dual certification. So as enrollment fluctuates, we say, okay, great, we have one less section here, we have one more section there. That is an important part about making sure that we have the feeder in the middle school as well as exposure to French at the elementary school, so that you have that long and strong scope and sequence. At this point, I think, the numbers justify because they cut from 2 to 1 at the high school.
Yeah, that seemed like a heavy lift as just an observer, but we
Yeah.
are committed as a school system to offering.
That
French
is also
for-
very common. I can tell you from working with different districts and being a French teacher, I would say that it's very common that you see that your French is your singleton, and it's one woman show in this case, but that is also why we write language agnostic curriculum. So when we're building a unit, you're going to see the French and Spanish teachers working side by side, and we've got the unit goals are the same. The essential question, we're doing the backward design, the UBD planning, and we're going ahead and making sure that the French is not off on its own, creating everything in isolation.
But can
are
I
we
just
at the
add?
school-
Yeah.
Sad, I'm sorry, because I think, Mr. Whitney, your student is dedicated to the French as we are. So I think we're still committed to making sure that we do have a French program. I mean, we have students who are very interested in French and Spanish, but we do want to make sure that that program, it thrives. So students like yours are continuously to be committed to the program.
Thank you, because I can see it, I mean, it's happening in other high schools, but you can see the chipping away in some sense of the
Yeah.
variety of languages that's, in a real sense, the variety of languages that are offered. But then, of course, I'd love to see that this is extending earlier into a student's education when they're more in tune to picking up language.
And I did send an email home to all Spanish-speaking families saying, I encourage you to consider thinking French if you're looking for an alternative. So it's not just Spanish for Spanish speakers, which is a wonderful gift that they have access to now. But if your student is one that is interested in another language, now, as one of the girls we were talking about from the breakfast last week said, I'm already great with Spanish. I'm literate in Spanish. I'm working on that. She's working on her English, and she'd like to continue with the French. So I think to be able to support the two languages is very important.
And if I could speak to that too, I have 3 eighth graders this year who are native Spanish speakers, and they absolutely blew away some of their counterparts because doing some work in both languages has really helped them to understand how language works and how to put together their thoughts and how to create in more complex sentences than their peers. So not only are they scoring higher on the Apple test, but they're using richer language in the day-to-day because they're sitting and thinking about how their language is similar and they're understanding it. And that's helping to bring up the performance of other kids because they're a little more willing to take a risk because they're doing it all the time in English, with English being their second language. Also, in terms of being committed to building the program, I know that the other French teachers and I work very hard at helping the kids to see what they can do with French in the real world. It's the reality of teaching French that you have to win them over a little bit more. So helping them to see that, yes, everyone's going to tell you you need Spanish for a job, but here's all of the ways that you can use French in the larger scope of the world, because English and French are still the second languages of every other country that isn't Spanish speaking. So we know that it's important to keep it also for IB. I speak both, but I think it's important to give the kids options so that they can see where their path is going to take them.
Thank you. And then as noticed the grant, the Stodia grants funded many of these efforts, but also I take it pays for the Apple testing. Is that going to continue? I don't know if
So we're in
Yeah.
year 2.
Yeah.
So we have 3 more years.
Okay.
And I think that's going to be a board decision when the grant goes, if what we're going to sustain out of the grant.
And again, that becomes a priority in some districts in Westchester County, New York, where I work. They test every student from 5th to 12th grade every year.
Wow.
And so, but that's a budget item because it's $10 per student for the speaking or, and so it is a budget item, but it allows us to be able to measure that growth in a way that, we can show the program gains. The other benefit is that it's an authentic speaking test about real world topics. So kids are talking about a variety of common themes and topics like from family to identity. So the test is not something that would be a wasted educational experience. Teaching towards that test is actually something that is an authentic speaking activity or writing in that case.
Thank
I'd
you.
like
My
to
own-
jump in for 1 second and just say that it adds a continuity and provides data for teachers. So if you're an 8th grade teacher and you've just given the Apple testing, we have access to that data until beginning of school. The teachers that are getting the students at the high school level can look at how they did, where their targets are. So I think it's been actually an amazing addition.
Yeah, Eva was one of the teachers last summer. We listened to hours of these student recordings and we're like, gosh, they're not varying their transition words. We were all aggravated. And we're like, okay, that's it. When we get back to curriculum writing, we need sequencing words and transition words. And we went in and we revised the chat mats and said, no, there are going to be connecting words on every page. There are going to be sentence starters to express opinions in a variety of ways. The number of times we heard certain questions repeated, we were going to poke our eyeballs out. And we were like, okay, that's it. We need to give them more opportunities to ask questions and a variety of them. So Eva, you could speak to that one.
I mean, it was interesting to hear the responses. We have no idea what the questions are going to be or any of the topics. So it's kind of like, a guessing game. And something that I told my students was, guys, just use what you know, use as much of it as you can, embellish because they don't know the truth. And we hear, like this year when we heard their responses, one of my students, the question was like, how many pets do you have or something like that? And she said she had 10 dogs and she named 10 classmates around her to fill the time and really used used what she knew to answer those questions. But it is a great tool to be able to go back and to listen to their responses and listen to how they answer the questions, and then also to see what is it that we're lacking in our instruction to help get them to the next level and to kind of fill in those gaps. So I think it's really important to continue using that testing.
And a shout out to you, Eva, because we've actually come in on our walkthroughs, and when they're practicing with one another, side by side or on the computer, you're able to really monitor and facilitate and kind of in the moment make some corrections. So that's really getting them ready too. But it's also that instruction happening as they're having conversation and getting them better and better and more confident in it. So thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to really just learn and to, to work with Leah and to work with my colleagues to really better our program. We have so much knowledge. We don't have a lot of resources, but we have a lot of knowledge and passion for what we do. And given this opportunity to really have a hand in creating our curriculum, driving the curriculum that we're creating, and then implementing it and seeing the results with our students has really been a special thing to do. So thank you guys for giving us that opportunity.
Thank you.
Susan, can I ask a question about,
Sure.
it seems to me that we approved a course that I'm not sure if this is the right title, but I think you'll get the picture for IB, and it was like Spanish in the workplace, something like that. Remember that?
We did have a course named Spanish in the Workplace. Carmita, do you know if that's running next year? I think Kate Serio
Yep,
had
yep,
taught
we
it.
sure do. It is not running this year, but we do have it.
Okay, so it runs based on the enrollment, I think, right?
Exactly. Yep, yep, yep.
So
But it
how
is,
would-
Right, good memory.
How would this coordinate with that?
So that would be one that could work. I think she was doing it with the Spanish speakers
Mm-hmm.
before. And so now we've got Spanish for Spanish speakers 1, Spanish for Spanish speakers 2, and then we're going to go into Spanish for Spanish speakers 3 is going to be the ECE course that you heard. Phil and I met with Jasmine and Yvette and the other teachers at the high school. So that could be something that we use as an additional elective.
Or would it not be necessary if we have a level 3 of this?
Well, or it could be, it could be an additional offering. I think they needed it before, but when was the last time it was run, Carmita?
I want to say 2 to 3 years ago, but it was literally students who would, obtain a job right out of high school, whether it was at a restaurant or anything like that, and be able to communicate with customers and other co-workers. So
Right.
it was needed at the time that it was proposed and curriculum was
And
written.
I think it was more for the Spanish
For the time,
speakers.
yeah.
They
Yeah,
didn't, they didn't
exactly.
have a track for Spanish speakers at that point. And that's my recollection. That's pre me working with the department, so I can't speak too much to that one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
How much is the grant in total, like,
It's 5-year grant,
for how
$1
much
million.
money?
$1 million. Okay.
So it's $200,000 a year?
About,
Grant.
yeah. Some of the cost, the first year is usually a planning year, but we kicked this baby off and we really started rocking and rolling the first year. So it depends. Sometimes the planning year is a little less, but in this case, I think we uploaded a lot of this work.
Because we started doing the curriculum work and everything.
So, yeah, but it
And the
averages out.
DODIA grants, how does that work? We can choose from a bunch of different grants, but the total maxes out at a certain amount? Is that how that works?
So with Department of Defense, they have a world language component in the grant, so we went for that. That was different than what they typically have, which are more STEM kind of oriented grants, since it is Department of Defense. So but one of our very first grants was on technology, the second was on literacy. So they do literacy as well, and sometimes they'll even have a component of social emotional learning, but it's typically around science and math. But this is a separate kind of DODIA, which is world language specific.
And so we have to show through that Apple testing, we have to show that our military students are making proficiency gains with each year, because they have a vested, like I teach for DODIA as well. Over the past, I've done workshops for DODIA teachers. They need to make sure that if the sub leaves here and goes to a base in California or wherever it goes, they need to make sure that these kids can pick up, and level 2 means something and level 3 means something, and we have proficiency targets associated with it. So we're showing gains, as you saw in that data, that show that the military students are indeed making gains. Will other students make gains? Yes, and hopefully 100% of students will make gains, but for the DODIA funding, that's specifically what we're looking at. And Val has been terrific at helping us, expand that grant and, understand, how to deliver the reports back to DODIA.
Yeah, all right. So I guess one concern I have, this is great for French and Spanish, but just one concern I have is that we're really like targeting kids into 2 languages. And we offer 3 at the high school now, and it seems like a lot more kids would choose, and their parents would choose for ASL. And I realize that doesn't go towards the IB program or the IB track, but by kind of, we're pigeonholing our kids into these 2 classes. And then there's the whole, kids with language-based disabilities, which is a lot of kids, may not be successful in Spanish or French, but may be very successful in ASL.
Although some students with IEPs, you see, that becomes a level playing field. Everybody's starting at that novice level. So you'll see that I have nephews with dysgraphia and dyslexia, and their most successful class is their Spanish elementary class, because everyone is back at the same starting point. The modifications are being followed. All the IEPs and 504s are all being followed. And MYP and IB say that all students to the greatest extent possible. So there are students with more severe disabilities that are not part of the classes. So it is not 100% that are in the classes.
And I'm hopeful that we can regionalize some of this, so there could be more opportunities for our kids, you know, so that we can all afford that and kids can participate. We do have the Apex program in Latin, has, still continues. I think Zoe still has a course in Latin on Apex. So there are ways that I think we can make sure we can add to that.
Yeah, well, I'm just personally, and I don't know if anyone else on this committee or on the board is gonna have a similar concern, but, my concern is that we're just focusing in on 2 languages at an early level without other offerings or other options.
In my
Especially
estimation,
when-
it's amazing that you have 2, because a lot of middle schools only have 1. So as much as I love languages, and I would love to see lots of languages, we also need to think about scheduling logistics, because if you started adding in 3 or 4 at the middle school, first of all, hopefully Peter is not listening to this conversation because his head would pop off, because trying to figure out the power school scheduling would be very, very complicated. So that is one aspect. And then finding qualified and certified teachers is another thing if we're going to start expanding. So quite honestly, I'd love to see this program continue to grow, become more robust, make sure that we've got viable numbers on both sides, and celebrate the fact that we have 2 at the middle level, and now we have 2, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, which is outstanding, and not in other areas around here.
I think it's also important to remember that MYP goes all the way to 10th grade, right? And so with this program, we're building proficiency all the way through 10th grade. That's the idea is at the end, right? As Leah said, that they're going to be able to be be able to be literate in their chosen language, and switching from different languages isn't going to help that path.
Are there any more questions?
I just had one more for the seal of biliteracy. I was wondering if we have numbers on, for instance, last year or this year, how many students obtained that, how many students tried. I imagine with this new program, it's going to grow. I was wondering where we are at right now.
So I have all that data, and I can include that in the attachment with Phil, if you like. We
that'd
did
be
see it
great.
grow this year. We saw a combination of growth in heritage languages, as well as the French, Spanish, and ASL that are taught in the district. So that is great news, and hopefully we're going to start seeing kids get it in 2 different languages. So you could do ASL as well as your French classes, or you could do your home language of Urdu plus Spanish from school. So you can do it, and each one of those would be a separate line item on the transcripts, and they will be recognized by colleges as such.
So all those students who come to us proficient in these other languages, and there's multiple, 30, 40 languages, if they're at that level, we do encourage them to take the seal of biliteracy. And there are a handful that will have the, seal of biliteracy just because of their background and their schooling that they've had.
Yeah.
And then they choose another English language and maybe a 3rd.
Yeah.
Thanks. I applaud the long view you're taking. This is truly developmental in terms of bringing the students to a useful point, competency in languages is wonderful.
Thanks, Mike.
So,
Thanks to our guests as well.
You
Thanks
all
for
were
sticking
terrific.
around.
We appreciate it.
And-
Thank you.
and you
Thank
can
you for
say goodnight,
joining.
Gracie, because we're going to go on to the curriculum, the referral list. So.
Thank
so
you.
good night.
Sign them up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you know if the next meeting is canceled?
I didn't know it till I got here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sam. I was wondering,
Thank
he
you.
just
You
wants
learned a
to
lot
hear about
tonight. You learned a lot
languages.
It was worth listening to, so.
So I know that we, okay. Do you
No,
wanna
go
say-
ahead.
Okay, I know that I put on the referral list a review of the English curriculum in terms of writing in 1918. So, I'm sorry, it seems like it. So in 2018, at any rate, seeing as how we're really putting all of our efforts into reading, I truly don't want to take it off, because I don't know what the new language arts approach is. Are we still with Columbia? Are we moving to somewhere else? does one of systems that we're looking at have a writing component? So,
K-5 does have a reading and writing integrated, but if we wanted to come back to tell you a little more deep dive on the writing itself,
yes.
right?
Yeah, and I think that's covered
I didn't want to
in,
interrupt, but I just wanted to say
Thank you so much. All right, bye.
in Adrian's referral for the literacy discussion. K3, I mean, I think we can incorporate both.
We could
read-
probably change
reading.
that to K to 5.
I think
Yeah.
we change that to K5.
I really want to look at 6 through 8, and then again at the high school.
So you want to just put writing in K to 8? Or what?
Well, I guess K to 8 would be a beginning, but I really want to see what they're doing at the high school.
Yeah, I think we add reading and writing to your referral, K5. I mean, should be covered in literacy anyway.
It's all in that, all right, so, yeah, K, that's all the same program that's
Yep.
doing writing and reading, right?
Right.
So,
Okay.
And then we can want to just change yours to 612?
Yeah.
And then
Now,
at
just
the-
writing?
All I'm interested, everybody else can look at reading up the yin yang. All I'm interested in is writing.
We will be approaching that literacy piece, though, for the upper grades as well.
And so that literacy now would be, I guess, 6 through 12? Is that what we're saying
Yeah,
And we keep
with writing.
for writing? or
with
not?
writing, yeah,
yeah.
For the top,
Writing.
for the top one.
Yeah.
okay. So I think,
I think the program of studies is always good to review as the new year
Yeah.
approaches.
okay, I think we did the
We
EMT.
did.
That's what we
do
just
And
did
that's, yeah,
tonight. that
so
can be
that's
removed.
So, yeah,
concluded.
program of studies, is it possible for the, I don't know if this is the right time, but is it possible for us to just get a list of all the class offerings for next year? And this year, what's going to be added? We can
Those should be
advertise
online, but
They're
I'll make sure
online.
that I'll send you the.
No, but, well, I guess the changes in class offerings, maybe that would be a nice thing for the
Well,
board.
because, yeah, we listed all of them, but then in the scheduling, if we didn't have enough to run a class, it didn't
Exactly,
run.
so
So-
what, so the changes in what's running, maybe if the
Okay.
board could get that.
Yep. Let me see how close we are, because they were still working out some of the details. I just went over a schedule with Matt, and he's looking for another English teacher. So,
Yeah.
we're working out some of those details. So I think as soon as I know for sure my budget, I know what I can do if they need to have a switch
Yeah.
or an add.
Yeah, no, it would just be nice I think for the board to know it, because there's a bunch of staff changing,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be expected that things are gonna change, but we should just, it'd be nice for the board to know what those are gonna be.
Okay.
And then Erica and we just started talking about the schedule for curriculum updates in all subject areas. So that should probably remain, because you guys will need to know about that.
Is that maybe connected to what you were just asking about the schedules that the classes are going to be offered, or is that broader?
Well, there was a calendar for regular revision.
Yeah,
And then when COVID came and went, it kind of got blown up.
gotcha.
Then we started, we focused on world language because we had the grant. We're focusing on K-5 literacy because that was a mandate for the state. So we wanted to look back because there are definitely some areas of curriculum. And if that, it's been a long time.
Like we saw
you
at
know.
2006.
A lot of times you focus on the core 4
Yeah.
subjects,
Yes.
but then you see some music and some health and some PE curriculums that are still written on.
So he just sent
Typewriter,
out messages
typewriter,
to everyone who's
I
been
just
working
started-
on it to
I just
say,
started
if you
that
have anything, let me have it now, that you've worked on. So we're trying to update that site.
So that's more like long view strategic.
That's ongoing
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
And
makes
then,
sense.
once we see what needs to be done, we have to set priorities based on what either the principals see or the board sees.
Legislation.
And sometimes legislation drives that.
So we had a lot of discussion about the middle school schedule, and I know that that's not curriculum, but it certainly does influence curriculum. So where are we with that? Are we, I wasn't completely convinced that it was down pat.
So that's what I was just saying, that they still are tweaking the schedule that they have been working on to make sure all kids have a place. But of course, you keep having kids in this community coming in all through. It just, the class sizes, though, are really better. We have had years where Rita used to talk about it all the time, where class sizes, we'd be running a 5 and then we'd have a 20,
Right,
20.
6.
Well, and so now they're more stable. They really are between 20 is kind of the average, and between 20, 24. Some classrooms, believe it or not, at both middle school and high school can't take more than that. It's not like the days when we had 30 in a class. I even had 30 in a class.
So did I.
So, so anyways, so, but I'll see what I can get. I'll talk to them. I'm going over there tomorrow anyway.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great if we could get some kind of a stabilizing message. So I guess the other thing is topics for future meetings.
To add to the referrals?
I'm sorry?
Is that to add to the referral? Is that?
Yes.
So I'd like to add something concerning special education offerings, a review of special education offerings, and we could narrow that in more, but I think as a school system, we do expend quite a bit of effort with that, and so that some of that could be highlighted, but also get sort of sense maybe already that's in the climate surveys about how that's going.
So do you want to put that on the referral, or do you want to put that on the subject for future discussion?
Whichever way you think it's more appropriate. I'm new to the committee. I thought maybe it went on the referrals, so I phrased it that way.
That would be a good one to put on referral. It's whether, I'm still not clear. We had some talk about how referrals were gonna go. Like, does the board have to agree that the committee should spend time on it first? Or should the committee look at it and come to the board? And did we, I don't think we ever actually,
I think there's so many routes you can take, like sometimes it's
that out.
mandated legislatively and we have to look at it
Yeah,
in
exactly.
multiple committees, you know? So
well,
there's
yeah,
so many different
obviously-
ways to go down
obviously
that
there's
road.
sometimes that we will just have to take it up in curriculum and the board. I would second that. I'm very interested in hear what we're offering for special ed. So I think that's a great referral. Whether it goes here or to the COW, you know what I mean? So
Right.
the entire, so that's why this list is so long. And a lot of these things could be in committee. And I don't really know if we came to a resolution on how it would be determined where it goes.
Yeah, I can
And
understand that.
if the board,
Review special ed offerings.
I think this is one that you guys could review, just like we did with literacy, and then we could bring to a COW. Because it might need that kind of attention. There's so many different
Yeah,
ways of
across all
special ed
levels.
curriculum, there's
course.
resource, there's specialized classes, there's co-taught classes, so there's such a variety of ways that teaching and learning is happening.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's appropriate to have any discussion now, but my thought to it is, as a school system, you probably have a lot of this data already, and I think it's probably in the climate surveys, but I'm not sure. But basically not to do new data exploration or creation, but just bring in perspectives as well as just an overview of what we are doing. Because I think it helps, I guess, RTM through the budget to see like all the many ways that it works through the whole educational day of everyone, really.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this would be a good committee to start it with, and then maybe, we would see that the full COW would be. Denise does come and the supervisors come kind of periodically, like at least 3 times a year to a COW or a regular meeting.
Yeah.
But to be discussing it in more level of detail here, and then you all let us know what you think. I think it's a good idea.
So do you have the middle school schedule down for
what
Yeah.
age range?
I wrote down both Groton Middle and Fitch High School.
okay, great.
What's that?
For age range, at least at this point, keep it open.
Just keep it broad.
And then sometimes you'll find that there's a specific, you might have a specific initiative that you want to focus on at a time, things like that.
Yeah.
I view it, if it's in the referral list, I kind of view it as sort of that ongoing category.
And for other future topics, Erica always called me and said, we're going to look at this, this, and this. So you might want to, who is in charge of, what the state is going to ask us to do, and what's up for?
Yeah, so that's a policy committee, but Erica and I usually, through my CAPS and K connections, I'm constantly looking at it, and the, you know, representatives and senator, you should call me with what's going on. Like, I just got a new document. I don't know if I've sent it out to you all yet or not, but a new CAPS document on, specifically on what happened this year for legislation. So, I try to brief the board too on all of that, because it does impact our budget.
Right.
It impacts a lot of things.
Of course.
So who is in charge, if it's policy for that, but who is in charge of, like, knowing what we're going to be, what's coming up? We ought to be looking at this curriculum, because it's been 25 years since anybody did, you know?
So Eric has always been very helpful with that.
Yeah.
You know, our handbook that we really are looking at with the strategic school plan and also with the handbook on curriculum. And I think she even has a Google Doc that has clearly articulated when things were written and what needs to come next. So it's something that we can definitely share.
Yeah, but in terms of like policy, you know, basically between the two of us, we try to stay on top. So if we know that like for the African American and Latino studies, we knew that was coming up. And so that trickles down from Susan to me to this committee.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, if we know any
Yeah.
mandates coming up
Yeah.
or we hear, that's where it would flow.
Okay.
So is there any way we could get that, have that written down somewhere so we would know prior, that it was coming prior to the Friday before the meeting or the day before the meeting?
Like,
So like all this you know, because, well, I guess EMT and nursing was on, but the world language was not, correct?
no, it was not on our
So-
referral list, yeah.
So, I mean, it's great that we went over that, but can there be like an administrative side referral list? That's not a board-generated referral list, so that we have some idea of what's coming.
what's coming up.
For planning, so that we're not talking
We've
about
just never
something.
done that. It's so interesting.
Sort of the
Because
watch
we're
list.
taking a new perspective, because
Yeah,
that,
like a
that
watch
one I'm
list.
always looking at to say, okay, what does the board need to do? And then I'm looking at the legislation and the
Yeah.
other side, or what has old and we need to revisit, you
Yeah, so
know?
if there's things that the administration, you know, that the board has to do and you guys know about.
No, it's a
just-
good idea.
It'd be great if there was,
Yeah.
just a separate referral list.
Right, or I wonder if it's simply, if I know something's coming up, sending it out to the committee and saying, I'm gonna add this to the referral
Yeah,
list.
I mean, I'm guessing that sometimes you don't know a month in advance that something's coming up, but.
Yeah, these three just jumbled together, because they were supposed to be for earlier in the year, and they just kept on getting sort of put off, but
When is our
was
next
a lot.
meeting?
I don't know.
I know he won't be here.
I don't know if I'm gonna be
Okay,
here for
I'm
it.
glad that you said that, because I didn't know, so, okay.
Keeping you for extra time tonight.
Right, I figured that's what you guys are doing. You just wanted to spend every last moment that you could with it. But I think it's a decision has to be made about this summer. I remember last summer, we didn't really meet because most of the committee was away
Right,
at different points of the year. So maybe,
It's hard to bring staff too, and a lot of times you'll want to hear from teachers.
Yeah, that's
Especially
true.
if they're developing the curriculum, that's.
but maybe think
essential.
more about what the three of you might want looking ahead to next year.
Yeah.
And maybe, well, I don't know how that works, whether you guys can meet to talk about it or it has to be posted.
Yeah,
You have to post it.
yeah.
Maybe we can find some, areas of the curriculum that we're just interested in that we can meet about, even if,
During the summer, you mean?
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are.
no, so I shouldn't agree to extra meetings. I never do that professionally, but I did see, it's not unique to our committee, but there are a lot of meetings canceled, and then a special meeting, most of it's time related.
Oh,
But I do think it looks good to, if we have a
Except that-
meeting, try and make it.
There are a lot of times when we say that, like, we're going to meet on Mondays.
Yeah.
Except that then it would be that a committee member was obligated to something else on Mondays.
Right.
So then you have to cancel it and you have to repost
So
it.
we set our dates, like we've already set the
Yes.
dates for next year.
Right,
We always used to be a Monday team because Tuesday is the town council, and then I think Wednesday or Thursday is
Right.
the RTM, so we all had separate nights. But then there were people who couldn't make it for different committees, so now the board, we're all over the map. I'd love to get us back on Monday.
Right.
Or Monday and Tuesday, you know, like, not so many, because there are times that I get invited to things and I can't go to these other meetings, you know, JC said it, I went in the fall and I went a couple times for the budget, but a lot of times our meetings were on the same night. So that was the intent of setting them a year in advance and having them on specific nights, and it kind of got out of our hands. So
It
I'd like
did.
to rein it in a little bit. if we
Yeah,
can.
and I think that we decided that as a curriculum committee, that we did not want to meet on Mondays because we were confined to an hour. But as we've done this, I think that being confined to an hour is a good thing.
Well, there's only so much you can think about. That was a lot to think about.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
Yeah, that
I'm
agenda
of the
just-
opinion that the meetings kind of take what they, they take, And I mean, we shouldn't start having
I'll take
4-hour
Because you-
curriculum
Well, we
meetings.
did have a
You
4-hour,
felt-
just.
You felt the opposite. That's why we.
That was, that
Exactly.
meeting took that long. I mean, there was a lot to go over, so.
But it was good seeing the centers of excellence today, just grouped together. I mean, there are many more, but it was nice to see that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they were all scheduled.
Do you want to
I think
end
the
the meeting?
rules are that.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
Hey,
gonna be
how about,
January 30th?
Yeah, you publish your year's count.
hey, how about motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Don't wait, I can't say that.
Say goodnight, Gracie.
Good night,
Okay.
Gracie.
All right, thank you.